Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. Thank you so much to Sadie. She is a wonderful reporter, and we appreciate her being with us on the program. Right now, I am just thrilled because I have begun to read this incredible book called Unscarred by a man named Robert Carney, and it has absolutely blown my mind so far. I'm about 100 pages in. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to us from Delray Beach, Florida, it is Robert Carney, the author. Nice to see you, Robert.
Nice to see you, Gary. Thank you so much for having me on.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Let's just, so the book chronicles your life growing up in the Bronx and making it all the way through some incredible tribulations, through jail, through drug addiction, and now you have kind of changed your life. I looked at some of the quotes of people who noted that in the book. This book demonstrates how character can overcome adversity. And this is, I thought, an amazing quote. Addiction is giving up everything for one thing. Recovery is giving up one thing for everything. And I'm sure that's something you can relate to.
That's
just how can you characterize what, I mean, I could try and explain it, but what you went through as a youngster growing up in the Bronx with an abusive mother, and of course her boyfriends who are equally, if not more so, abusive. Do you look back at it and you wipe your mind of it? Or do you say, I've got to acknowledge this so that I can move on and be the person that I ultimately turned out to be?
It's funny you asked that. Over the COVID time when we were locked in, I did a thing called online on Zoom, ACOA, and it's Adult Children of Alcoholics. Of course, your 12-step programs saved my life. And I just happened to do this with seven people. And I got to take a really good look at my childhood. And that's one of the things that prompted me to write the book. Because once I took a good, real look at it, I thought, God, no wonder I took to alcohol and drugs the way I did. But I also learned that my parents, especially my mother, who was a product of foster care, she was handed a set of tools to work with as a parent. And I have to tell you, those tools were not very good.
I was going to say, what tools could it have been when she left you out in the cold and beat you? I mean, I can't even talk about it. It's so horrible.
She basically had no tools. And the idea of that program is to say, okay, so they hand those tools down to their children, which is me, but you don't have to take those tools. You can trade them in for new tools. But so I understand where she came from. One of the things that got me.
You're more sympathetic than I am at the moment, but okay.
Listen, even your mom is your mom. Like, that's it. And no matter what they do to you, you have this inner thing to want to, appease them and make them proud of you and so on and so forth. But I definitely suffered the results of that childhood, later on in my teens.
One of the things that I appreciated, and this was part of what I have read recently, and again, there's a lot more to go. The Bronx, the nature of the Bronx, even though you were so disaffected, with school didn't matter, nothing mattered, right, you were able to survive doing really fascinating things. You looked out the window and you saw them lining up garbage cans, the sanitation guys, right, and you said, if I could line up the garbage cans, I could. And now, of course, making a dime or making 20 cents in those days was a lot more significant than nowadays. Right. But you did that. There's a sense of two things. That, number one, a sense of survival in the fact that you came up with that, and number two, that that the culture of the Bronx, the neighborhoods, helped you do that. In other words, I'm going to give one more story, which was brilliant. And I played stickball as a kid, that they would lose the balls down the sewer, and you figured out a way to get them out of the sewer, and you collected them, measured what they would pay for them in the store, and sold them back to the kids playing stickball. That is a Bronx, even aside from everything else, to me, that is a Bronx neighborhood story worth telling. I think it's fascinating.
Correct. Yeah. And I had shoe shine route. I had my shoe
Yes, that's
shine
right.
route. I would, invent jobs if I couldn't. I think probably money might have been my first addiction, because I tell you, it made me feel good having it. And also, you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. So having grown
There you
up in the
go.
Bronx, I was able to go to San Diego and start a business there and become successful, sell that, and then go to Reno, Nevada. I was there for 15 years, where I started another business and sold that. And we were able to retire here in Florida. But of course, all that is only possible because I got clean and sober. And
There's no substitute for that.
no, I always say, I also when I was using and drinking, I would sell weed. I mean, that was my big thing, among other things. But it turns out I'm a much better sober businessman than I am a drunken pot dealer.
Drug. I can understand that. Now you were incarcerated. Why were you incarcerated? And twice, I believe.
Armed robbery. Yes,
armed robbery. Wow.
Yes, and then strong arm robbery. Yes.
Wow. And now it seems to me, having never been in jail, incarcerated, there's a ton of time. Did you think about writing the book at that time, or the way you described it was really after the fact? But it seems to me you had all that time. It would have been as good a time to write a book as any.
They offered a college program, Mercy College,
right.
in Mid-Orange Correction Facility. And I had 2 years to the parole board. And I just wanted to put it out there. Anything I did was to get out of prison. And I thought, how good would that look at the parole board if I was able to graduate college? So this
was Mercy College at the time, now called Mercy University.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Go ahead. Keep going. I want to hear this.
And they came in, and I went to 2 years, and I took a creative writing course during that time. And I had a collection of short stories that I wrote while away. I still have them. So that was one of the things that prompted me to write the book.
Well, and the other thing, let's credit our friends at Mercy College. And once you told me that, I communicated to you that I had actually taught music classes for Mercy College at Sing Sing Prison, going into the prison and certainly playing. It was pop, the history of pop music at the time. And I distinctly remember a lot of the prisoners were really very, very inspired. It took them out of their lives. So I can understand how that could have affected you. Go ahead. You want to say something, and then I'm going to ask you.
Seventh grade, I dropped out in 7th grade, basically. I stopped going to school. But for a guy who was able to do that and graduate with a 3.6 index, it made me feel good about myself. I felt, they helped me tremendously. And I did a lot of growing up during those 2 years going to school in there. So what turned out to be something I wanted to do to get out of there, really helped me tremendously, especially starting a business. Because I thought if addicts and alcoholics don't really think much of themselves, at least I didn't. And I never thought I'd be able to operate a legitimate business. But thinking back, I said, well, I went to college. I have an associate degree. If I can do that,
man,
maybe
I'm going to be very simple about that. You created businesses by looking at women who couldn't take their groceries home. So you borrowed your mom's shopping cart and created a business. So, extrapolating it all the way to the end, to when you got out of prison and you're thinking about your life in a different way. What business did you start? What business do you have, or did you?
Moving company. A moving company. Yes. Well, I started the first one in New York while I was still here when I first got sober, called Reliable Man with Van, who just got out of the can.
and you that's funny. Reliable Man with Van just got out of the can. But basically that is also an exponent of the fact that you were helping women get their groceries home. I mean, it's like, wow, you knew that.
Yeah.
You knew that.
I
And
work
and it,
for I work for Lyft.
you
Yeah,
work
I
for
work for Liffey Movers in Harlem. Liffey Movers
Liffey
in
Movers,
Harlem.
okay, right?
Right. And on the weekends, I bought a van and I put an ad in the Riverdale Press and in the Penny Pincher in Throg's Neck. Reliable man with van, no job too big or small. And
Wow.
it started out, I started making more money on the weekends and in the evening than I was at my regular job. And so I found out if I put a 6x12 trailer on the back of that van, I could carry a 2-bedroom apartment. So then I bought a
Wow.
small truck. But of course, I did that. Everything was under the table and I got caught. And the DOT, I know the DOT said to me, listen, why don't you let us help you get the license? Apparently you're a mover, and because
Wow.
we haven't had any complaints about it. So I went on my honeymoon 2 weeks later to San Diego and in 96. And after my honeymoon, I came back and I planned on doing that. But I said to my wife, if we're going to do it, let's do it in San Diego. And
And
we moved back to San
we,
Diego 3 weeks later. And then I started my first moving company there.
we are almost out of time, and you have now brought up what my next question was going to be. You met a woman,
Yeah.
you found a woman who became your wife, and you owe a lot to her because, given your past, there's probably a lot of people that wouldn't even look at somebody like that. And
Right.
I guess it underscores not only the importance of the education, but the importance of family and support, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. When you get further into the book, she has her own chapter in the book,
Okay.
and it's called Lady Di, and you'll
Okay.
enjoy that. You'll really enjoy
Listen,
that.
I enjoyed the book because it's well written. It's easy to read. I can tell there's a human being behind it. I am shocked that you remembered all those details. My
I know.
childhood
I am
was
too.
was a lot more benign than
Especially because I
yours.
smoked a lot of pot over the years, and
Oh,
I
you
can't
think it
believe
might be gone
I
at that point? Listen,
yes, yes.
ladies and gentlemen, the book is Unscarred, and it is
Yeah.
just a fascinating read. Robert Carney, an epic fight to heal my wounds from addiction. But I think it's just so inspiring, and I can't thank you enough for presenting it and getting it to us. And good luck with the book. And now you're living in a little more comfort that, frankly, after what you've been through, you richly deserve. And so, congratulations,
Yes.
and thanks for joining us in the
Thank
Bronx
you
Buzz.
very much.
Good. Everybody, check it out. I'm assuming you can find it online. You can get it anywhere. Just look up
Oh,
Unscarred
yeah,
by
you can
Robert
get it. You can
Carney.
also go to my website at robertcarney-author.com and get a free excerpt
There you
of
go.
the book. And you can order it on Amazon or any online
Great.
retailer.
Great.
Yes.
You are really to be admired for not letting the worst of you take over and let the best of you achieve.
The best way I can explain the book is it's
Got to
about
be
someone
quick.
who knocked down 7 times and got up 8.
There you go. Robert Carney, thank you so much for joining us. And we appreciate your time on the Bronx Buzz. And that will
Thank you,
do it.
Gary.
Wow. Two great guests this evening. And you know what we say, if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, we'll be back next week. So there you go. Good night.